I stood in the middle of my empty atelier, staring at the dress that had destroyed my life. Bright red, form-fitting, created for seduction. It still hung on the mannequin, mocking me. This dress had helped me get the man and the money, but it also took away my soul and reputation. Who could have thought that one evening of passion with another woman's husband would transform me from a rising star of the fashion world into a pariah, and his lawful wife would become my salvation? Well, let me start my confession from the moment when ambition clouded my judgment. That morning, I was twirling in front of the mirror like a beautiful tropical bird showing off its plumage. Every seam, every fold of my red dress was calculated to the millimeter. I created it specifically for this day, the day that was supposed to be my triumph. A slight tingling in my fingertips betrayed my nervousness, but outwardly I remained unfazed. A designer can't afford to look uncertain, especially when the future of your brand is at stake. They don't stand a chance against this beauty and energy, I whispered to my reflection, fixing a stray strand of hair. Knave fool, I thought I had everything under control. My brand was already making waves in New York's fashion circles. Socialites and TV stars from major networks were falling over themselves to order my designs. But it wasn't enough for me. I wanted more: international recognition, boutiques in Milan and Paris, shows at the world's premier runways. And for that, I needed money. Big money. And I knew exactly where to get it. Alexander Stone. The name itself rang through fashion circles like a golden bell. Businessman, connoisseur of beauty, collector of women. I knew about his reputation. Everyone did. I knew he was married too. But at that moment, I couldn't have cared less. When you're obsessed with a dream, moral principles become nothing but inconvenient obstacles. The show started like clockwork. My models floated above the runway like ethereal creatures draped in silk and lace. I stood backstage, but my eyes were fixed on only one person in the audience. Stone sat in the front row, radiating an aura of power and money. His eyes, shrewd and appraising, followed every movement of the models. I watched as his gaze traced the curves of their bodies, and inside, I was jubilant. If he reacted this way to the models, what would happen when I approached him myself? Throughout the show, I was like a tightly wound string. Every movement, every gesture had been rehearsed beforehand. And when the final model disappeared backstage, I took a deep breath and headed toward my target. My heart was pounding like crazy, but my walk remained confident. I felt like a huntress stalking her prey. What irony, knowing how it all ended. Mr. Stone, thank you for coming. It's such a pleasure to see someone who truly understands fashion at my shows. How did you like my designs? How about the girls? I delivered my prepared lines, slightly shifting my hip so the dress's slit would strategically reveal my leg. A cheap trick, but one that always worked. Alexander slowly looked me up and down, his gaze lingering exactly where I calculated. Impressive, Miss Winters. I'm quite taken, especially this dress on you. It's hot. Is it also from your collection? I felt my cheeks flush and mentally congratulated myself on my acting skills. Yes, I created it specifically for tonight. I'm glad you appreciate it. And not just the dress. It looks perfect specifically on you. Perhaps we could discuss the details over dinner. There it was, fish on the hook. I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was even easier than I'd imagined. I'd love to, Alex. May I call you that? I purred, already imagining how this evening might end. Back then, I didn't know I had just signed my own death warrant. But can you blame a drowning person for grabbing a snake, mistaking it for a life preserver? The restaurant Stone picked was exactly as I'd imagined. Expensive, with dimmed lighting and live jazz music. The kind of place where deals are made and hearts are broken. I could feel curious glances from other patrons, but it only amused me. Let them look. Let them whisper. I knew I looked drop-dead gorgeous in my red dress. Alexander ordered the finest wine, and when the waiter withdrew, he leaned in so close I could smell his cologne. Expensive, like everything else in his life. His eyes glittered in the half-light like a predator ready to pounce. Your collection truly impresses me, but I want to know how ready you are for collaboration. I don't like to keep my money far from my own pockets. I prefer it within arm's reach. And from time to time, I like to take it out and count it, slowly. I felt his hand under the tablecloth. It slid across my knee, and everything inside me tensed. Not from desire, from the realization of how low I was willing to sink for my goal. The voice of reason screamed to slow down, to play hard to get, to act like an impregnable fortress. But my mind was already dancing with zeros on checks and camera flashes at international fashion shows. Alex, you can touch your money whenever you want. It will always be close by. I'm ready for anything to make our partnership successful, I whispered, looking into his eyes and feeling like I was selling my soul to the devil for a bag of gold. That's how our mad dance of passion and business began. I created exclusive outfits for his wife Helen, turning each fitting into an exquisite torture. While she twirled in front of the mirror in my dresses, I imagined her husband taking them off me later that evening. Yeah, I was quite the bitch. Alexander showed up at my atelier more and more often, supposedly to discuss investments. We both knew it was a lie. Each new design I created was like a love letter, not to his wife, for whom it was intended, but to him. I wove my passion, my desire, my obsession with success into these garments. Guilty conscience. Of course, I had one. Tiny pinpricks in my heart every time Helen smiled at me, admiring another dress. But I learned to drown them out with the sound of coins jingling in my head. After all, I was giving her beautiful dresses in return, making her the queen of social galas. Wasn't bad enough. One evening, as usual, we were alone in the atelier. Alexander was holding me, his hands sliding over the silk of my dress, and I felt so desired, so successful. What a fool I was. You're driving me crazy, he whispered. Your dresses are like a second skin. I can't stop thinking about you. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the moment, and that's when I heard the sound of the opening door. You know that feeling when the whole world stops and then starts crumbling like a house of cards? That's exactly what I felt when I saw his wife Helen standing in the doorway. In her hands was a bag with my logo, another order she'd apparently come to pick up. Now that bag lay on the floor, and in her wide eyes, I saw such shock, such pain, that for the first time, I felt truly ashamed. So that's what this is about. I see you're investing more than just money in this little tramp. Her voice was cold as ice. And here I thought it was all for my wardrobe. What an idiot I've been. Alexander jumped away from me like he even scalded. I felt dirty, used, pathetic. Helen turned to leave and I, not knowing why, called out, "Helen, wait." She turned around and her gaze pinned me to the spot. You know, Victoria, your dresses are truly beautiful. Too bad you can't sue yourself a new conscience. Those words hurt more than any slap could have, because they were the truth. Pure, unvarnished truth. They say that after a fall, you can only rise up. That's a lie. Sometimes the fall is just the beginning. After Helen left, my life turned into an endless spiral of nightmares. News of the scandal spread through the fashion community like wildfire, burning all the bridges I'd so carefully built over the years. I sat in my empty atelier among rolls of fabric and half-finished dresses, watching my world crumble. My phone was blowing up with calls, but not from clients. Journalists hungry for dirty details, former friends rushing to distance themselves, investors terminating contracts. And Alexander. Oh, that coward outdid himself. I no longer have any dealings with Victoria Winter's brand. His statement to the press was brief and lethal. He tossed me aside like a used tissue, trying to save his marriage and reputation. Funny how quickly a passionate lover turns into a coward when things get hot. My fingers automatically traced over sketches of the new collection, the one that would never see the light of day now. Each drawing seemed to mock my ambitions. I had poured all my dreams of fame and success into these dresses, and now they had turned into paper ghosts of unfulfilled hopes. The phone's ring made me jump. The screen displayed a name that made my blood run cold, Helen Stone. My finger hovered over the decline button, but something made me answer. "Don't hang up," I blurted out before she could speak. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but, Victoria, you silly girl." Her voice sounded unexpectedly calm. "I'm not calling to fight. I want to propose a deal. I froze, not believing my ears. A deal? From the woman I betrayed? Was this some elaborate revenge? A deal? My voice trembled. Yes, I want to buy your brand. And this isn't a joke. What? But why? I felt like a character in some surrealist play. You may be a snake, but you're a talented one. And this will be my little revenge on Alexander. He'll lose both you and the ability to control your success. I felt a lump forming in my throat. There was some twisted logic in her words. Helen, I don't know what to say. Just say yes. We both deserve a fresh start. You're not the first one he's rolled his dice for, but you're the only one through whom I can crush him. At that moment, I understood this was my chance, not just to save the business, but for redemption. Yes, through pain and humiliation, but hadn't I earned that? Yes, I agree my hands were shaking, and my heart was racing like mad. The next year became the hardest and most important of my life. Helen turned out to be more than just a betrayed wife. She was a steel magnate with a shark's business instincts. Under her guidance, my brand, now our brand, soared to new heights. But most importantly, I changed. I no longer created dresses for seduction. My style transformed into a hymn to women's strength and dignity. And Helen, she taught me a lesson that no fashion school or university could teach. She showed me that true passion is passion for your craft, not for other women's husbands. You know what's most interesting about this story? How Helen ultimately punished Alexander. No, she didn't resort to scandals or lawsuits. She did something far more sophisticated. By turning my brand into an international fashion empire, she made sure Alexander saw his failure everywhere. Every fashion magazine, every show, every boutique window screamed about his stupidity. He lost not just his mistress, but the chance to profit from my talent. And Helen, she became far wealthier than him. The most humiliating thing for an alpha male like Alexander was that his ex-wife, yes, they eventually divorced, now appeared at social events wearing our brand's dresses, radiating success, while his new projects with young designers failed time after time. He tried to repeat his seduction and investment scenario, but none of his attempts came close to our success. They say the best revenge is success. Helen proved that true. She didn't just get revenge, she built an empire on the ruins of her marriage. And you know what? I'm proud to be part of this story, even if I got there through such a painful path. And the red dress? It still hangs in my workshop, as a reminder that sometimes our worst mistakes can lead to the best decisions in life. You just need to find the courage to acknowledge them and the strength to start over.